All right, what's up, gentlemen? So we are here for episode 33 of Cage Side Convos. We're taking a little bit of a hiatus, but we're coming to you with a little social distancing, and I'll have my guests introduce themselves.
As you guys know, this is Quince back again. Always good to see you guys. Good to be back.
Right. This Fyne Print Williams. I've been on the show once. This is number 2 for me. So yeah, I mean, if you know me, you know me. If you don't, but hopefully by the end of this, you will. There you go.
Absolutely, awesome, man. Yeah, and this is cool. Awesome to get to catch up a little bit. I know we've all been kind of scattered to the wind a little, but it's shit like this is cool. I've been talking about this with some of my friends, because everybody kind of in different areas. So like when I talk to people at the gym, or when I actually get a chance to see someone from the gym, all of a sudden it feels like that time didn't exist between, and I haven't talked to you guys really much in a couple of months, interact a little bit on Facebook or through text and stuff,
Right.
but actually getting a face-to-face conversation. It's pretty cool because it's just normal. It doesn't seem like it's been 3 months since we talked. It's like, oh yeah, we talk all the time.
Right.
So
Right.
that's cool, man. So yeah, we'll jump right into it. Today's topic, we're going to talk about planning and worrying. So we'll talk about kind of the differences in the two, and then we'll talk about the paradox that's created with the importance of planning and the simultaneous importance of being present and being in the moment too, right? So planning, we have to know what could come next, what's going to come next, but we can't spend all of our time worrying about that. So how do we stay present and still plan for a productive future?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to leave it right there. You guys got off of that. Nice, easy in topic right there.
Sure. Just dive in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we've had similar discussions in the past, and when it comes to planning, and sometimes you can even overplan. You can be underprepared, and both kind of seem to cause that sort of anxiety. Sometimes you get lost, or I guess me. I'm speaking of myself. Sometimes I get too lost in the planning, and while it's good for me to be able to visualize outcomes, because I think it's a smoother transition to be able to visualize it first. Sometimes I get too lost in that, and so my energy is kind of put out in too many directions at once.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I get kind of I lose sight in what the goal is in the first place, and lose sight of the things that I could be doing now.
Right.
So I think stuff like that causes more anxiety than not.
So that's interesting. So you're saying obviously when we plan, one of the most necessary steps in planning is visualizing, is having a goal. But
Right.
You say that you get so wrapped up in planning to work towards that goal that you'll lose sight of the goal itself.
That I don't even take step one,
Right. Okay.
So, the lack of being present and being aware kind of holds me back from taking action, on what I could be doing in the now.
Right. Yeah. So that almost steps over into the worrying kind of category, right? When we go from planning, and because I think planning, we talked about before, planning is in conjunction with actionable steps. So
Right.
as soon as we're not actively moving forward, we're not planning anymore. We're living in those hypotheticals. We're worrying. Even if we're optimistic or excited about what's going to happen, I think that's still kind of worrying because you're not actually moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Did I jump ahead?
The truth of that is, somebody even said most of what we think our reality is happening right here.
Yeah.
And so you're pretty much stopping yourself before you even start thinking about the cold shower things. You know what I'm saying? You can stare at it and think about how bad it's going to be, or you can dive right in. You know what I'm saying? So that's the whole thing. Planning is cool, but don't think too much into it, because you probably end up talking yourself out of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's that you got to find that nice balance right there, because it can be scary once you start thinking about, oh, what if this bad thing happens, and what's this? Well, you know what? How about I just stay safe and just not do it at all, and that way I don't have to worry about it.
Right.
So, yeah, slippery slope.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that that metaphor of the cold shower. I've never thought about it in that context. Because you can plan and say, okay, I'm just gonna jump into this, get this cold shower out of the way. It's 1 or 2 or 5 minutes or whatever you're gonna do, but you start worrying about it. And so I was telling you guys when we were talking before, I don't even stick my hand in the shower to see what the temperature is gonna be before I do that, because I know if I do that, I'm gonna start worrying, because that shit's cold and it hurts a little bit when you get in. So just gotta plan. Okay, my plan is in there for 5 minutes. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Perfect.
We went cliff diving just yesterday over at Millsite Lake. There was a nice little spot for it. We kayaked over there, and it's not my usual go-to. You know what I mean? Usually I like to play it pretty safe, but it was a hot day and it was much needed. And so as I was climbing to the top, I'm like, I know as soon as I get up there, and this is me thinking about, as soon as I get up there, I'm probably going to freeze. I'm probably going to second guess myself. I'm probably going to try and justify why I shouldn't be doing it or find an excuse. And, it was Jay and myself, and he went first, and he was standing right on the edge, which I knew was a mistake. Right on the edge, and you look over and you're like, why am I here? What am I doing with my life? And so, it took him quite some time. Granted, he went first, so there's a little more risk in it, but it took him, a good 5 minutes to work up the, that courage to jump in. But while I was climbing up, I already knew that was going to happen. And so I'm like, I'm just going to start from the back, and when it's my turn, I'm just going for it. You know what I mean? I don't have the fear of heights looking down right underneath me. So as soon as they picked the camera up to record, I just took off. I didn't even leave myself any time to think. But that's sometimes that works for me, just getting right into it, instead of overthinking it.
Well, so we could take that example, we can kind of dissect that. And I think that has all of the tenets of what productive planning requires. You know what the risks are.
Right.
You know what the potential dangers are. You know what the potential setbacks are. So you're going to get up there, okay, one, you have to have a safe landing spot, right? Which luckily for you, Jay went first, so the water was steep enough.
That was rule number one for me. Don't go first.
Right. So that's an actionable step in planning. Like, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to be the first one. So we had that. So you check that box off, right? I'm not going to be the one hitting my head on the rocks. I'll let my friend do that first. Number two is you know yourself well enough, because you spend enough time in self-reflection and honest self-reflection, introspection, and all that jazz. And you can say, I know, one, I'm afraid of heights. So if I stand there, I know I'm going to freeze. So I have to avoid that hang up. So you know that it's coming because you've been through the repetitions and stuff before, so you can plan for that. And okay, the water is probably going to be cold, but we were talking about, doing those cold showers and stuff. That's part of it too. Okay, yes, cold water. And for me, I know if I know the water is cold, I get a little afraid, which is a weird thing that I've had to understand, but I'm actually afraid of cold water because I know my body's going to respond negatively to it at first. But again, through the constant repetitions and trial and error and stuff, I know, okay, well, I'm going to be fine after about 2 or 3 seconds. So you got that obstacle planned out, and you know what to do if and when that happens. Because it doesn't, it's not always going to happen, but it's a very real possibility. So we have to plan for it. So the potential obstacles, you plan for them, and you said, okay, to avoid these obstacles and make sure I do it, I'm just going to start from the back and send it and not think twice. But at that point, it's not reckless because you've already planned all these things out. I have to just pull the trigger.
Right.
So
it has to do, like you said, with the awareness of self.
Yeah.
Because it would work. Another person can go through similar planning steps and have a different outcome by the time, when it's time to jump off.
Right.
But knowing how I respond to certain situations, I did plan around that accordingly.
Right.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, I think that's dope right there as far as that self-awareness part, knowing yourself kind of gives you a leg up, because if you know that you react a certain way in a certain environment or whatever the situation is, then you can kind of counter play against that, because you're like, you know what, maybe I'm not the person that's gonna go first, because you know what I'm saying, I know that I don't want to do that, and then I'm gonna freak out or whatever,
Right.
because you know yourself.
Right.
You know, so knowing yourself is a big part about it, and don't put yourself in that situation
Right.
that's gonna slow you down and stop you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, acceptance.
Well, that's so Quince, you and I have been talking a lot about ego and doing a lot of you know, our own personal reading and stuff and that, but it's interesting to see from, you know, my level of understanding of ego, how that plays into the level of awareness too, because there's definitely a point in my life where if I was in that jumping situation that you were in, I would have said, oh, I want everybody to think I'm the man, I'm going to be the one that goes first. And I would have got up there, and there was a very real chance I would have got scared and I wouldn't have gone first, you know?
Right.
But now I'm at a point where I don't give a shit about that ego. I know, like, there's a lot of situations I don't want to be the one that goes first. I mean, you know, sometimes I'll push past it and do it, but man, I hate heights. You know, I'm more like, I don't want to land on rocks when I jump, you know? So I would definitely like to not be the guy that goes first, and I'll set my ego in the back seat. I don't give a shit anymore. I'll let somebody else take that jump.
Yeah.
That's right. My ego will be standing in the back right with me. All good. All good.
Yeah. No, very true. So, I mean, Jay is very, you know, he has no problem going first, and he's like, I'm going to get up there. I'm going to swan dive. I'm going to do this and that. And don't get me, he did it. You know, he pulled it off. But when he was up there, he was like, you know, we had someone recording below. He's like, is that recording? They're like, yeah. He's like, turn it off. He's like, together first, and I'll let you know when I'm ready.
I'll be a minute. Yeah. So I mean, that's great too. Yeah. Knowing Jay kind of, you know, as much as they do, but that's definitely his personality, man. He's
right.
And I mean, you know, look at, I've, you know, had a few chances to talk to him about where his life's at and stuff like that, but that's the kind of personality it takes to make those steps. Yeah. You know, like all three of us, we're going to progress on our own, and motherfucker, this might have to be a 2-part episode. Apparently, I got a 40-minute time limit on this bad boy. So we got about 9 minutes left right now, gents. It's going to drop us. We'll turn it right back on and start the recording again. So pause the interruption. I thought that was for meetings with over 3 people, but apparently it's for meetings with 3 or more. So Zoom got me on this one. But yeah, so that's a point of learning for me, you know. So now I got to grow and be better for that next time. Quit being so goddamn cheap and buy a premium version of something once in my life.
Whoa! Let's not say things we can't take back. Nothing wrong with 2 episodes.
Right.
Oh man. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's definitely interesting to see kind of the different personality types and their approach to progress. You know, I'm kind of more of a slow and steady guy myself. Yeah.
No, it is super interesting because, you know, for him to get that motivation to jump off, you know, he might need to go first. He might need to do it in the most, you know, in the wildest way possible, you know, to psych himself up and get that energy. I mean, very right. So there's no wrong way. There's certainly no wrong way.
Right. It's a preference deal. Some people like to take the plane. Some people like to drive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you end up in the same place. You know?
Yeah. I like that. I like that. Yeah. And so I definitely. I think that changes the planning, the way that planning looks and stuff too, because, you know, if we look at it, you know, Jay's plan was, I'm just going to get up there and I'm going to do it. And then when he got there, then he had to figure out all the next steps, you know, and so that looks a little bit like worrying sometimes, you know, and he stood up there for 5 minutes on the edge doing all his planning. Whereas like you, Quince, you were doing your planning on the way up there. It took you 5 minutes to climb up and to get in position, you know, so that same 5-minute time period was just executed at different times. So the same steps still have to happen regardless of your approach. You know?
Yeah. The only difference is mine wasn't on camera like that.
Yeah. I'm not too proud to say I let someone else take the bullet for me. So I'll watch someone else do all the planning.
Yeah.
Oh man. That's too funny.
I think that's a good thing too. Is plans work differently for different people. Like you can't always use somebody else's planning method to reach the goal. I mean, it's probably not going to work that way for you.
Right.
You know, so seeing how someone else does it, and then you can try it, but it may not work for you. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it. You may just have to come up with another plan. You know? So there's that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's what learning is. It's hard for us to learn from other people's experiences. You know, we always say that experience is the best teacher.
Right.
Which is why it's hard to give advice. It's hard to receive advice, because even if somebody gives us advice, like, you know, the metaphor is the hot stove. They tell you, don't touch the stove, it's hot. And you're like, I get it, but I still have to experience that. So now the way I've started approaching not only giving advice, but also receiving advice is somebody tells me, don't touch the stove, it's hot. I'm like, all right, I'm going to touch the stove. So now when I tell somebody, I'm like, listen, that stove's hot. So when you touch it, you're going to burn your hand. After you've burned your hand, put on, you know, bandage it up, wash it with cold water, you know, put this kind of cream on it, and that will help the burn heal faster. Right. So I know you're going to do this because I did it too. This is what I did after the fact to help me get to that next step more quickly. Mm-hmm. You know, so instead of not doing it, like I said, I'm gonna touch the stove, and I burn my hand and it hurts. Well, the first time I did it, I tried, you know, X, Y, and Z to heal the burn faster.
Right.
The second time I did it, I tried something different and I healed more quickly. And now I just don't touch the stove because I'm not smart enough to not touch it after the first time. You know.
Right.
Right.
So.
You know, and there was something, and that has to do with taking action. You know.
Yeah.
First place, because in planning, you come to find out that you can't necessarily plan for everything. Just like, you know, I jump in the water, I know it's going to be cold, I know it's going to affect my body and my movement or my breathing, but I don't know how. You know what I mean? If I haven't done it before, there's no way I can plan that out. Right. So when I was talking before about overthinking, overplanning, sometimes having it keep me from taking that first step. Sometimes I have to keep in mind, you know, leave that room for flexibility. Keep in mind that I'm going to have to make some of it up right there on the spot.
Yeah. That's actually a plan right there. Like I plan to not plan, you know, because sometimes I just dive right in because that works better for me as far as certain things like videos, if I'm doing a live or stuff like that. Yeah. I say, you know what, my plan is to not plan it out, and I just dive right in, and then I'll just, you know, hope for the best. You know, I kind of have a general idea of where I want to go with it, and then I just let it happen. But that's a plan and not planning, but it actually works for me better that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And, you know, and even with that, you know, being that, because I think, and Rick, this is something we've talked about, even with these conversations. We used to have everything structured out, planned to a T, but we found that sometimes just that genuine back and forth conversation, you kind of get just more real shit from. And you're not stuck to all the talking points. So I think what Fyne Print is saying is right on point. Because sometimes you might come across something just in the convo that wasn't on the page that, you know, is super enlightening.
Absolutely.
But even in that planning to not plan, I still think there are sorts of mental preparations that people, you know, like you, Fyne P, or you, Rick, that we do on a regular basis that allows us to come into a situation without a definite plan and be able to maneuver.
Well, for you guys, you know, especially as hip hop artists, you guys freestyle. You guys practice freestyling all the time. You practice not planning.
Yeah.
You know, you turn the beat on, you're just like, all right, whatever comes to mind. And I cannot freestyle. I can't do that. I'm gonna look dumb as shit if I try to freestyle. But I'm sure you guys, you know, the first time you tried to do it, you probably had a similar experience. But now, Quince, like I've seen you just turn the camera on and go live freestyling on Instagram and stuff like that. It just
see that? Oh man. But I mean, but that's exactly to CK's point, like that's something that I wanted to be more proficient at.
Yeah.
So to practice putting myself in situations where there's no plan, you just kind of go with it and put yourself on the spot. And it is, you say the first time you sound like an asshole. Look, the 100th time I still might sound like an asshole too, but now it still doesn't keep me from continuing on, and then, and dope shit will come after that, it'll come and go. So you kind of give up control on that situation. And I think that allows you to move a little bit more freely.
Absolutely.
Which is a good
that's
thing.
huge right there.
Let's real quick, guys, hold your train of thought. I'm gonna stop this real quick. I'll restart another meeting. Fyne P, as soon as we hop back on and get flowing again, man, we'll pick up right there with you. All right.
All right.
So give me